Welcome back to Ready Player None, the only podcast with a speedometer that maxes out at 85 miles per hour. Previously, as part of his master plan, Wade had allowed himself to be captured by IOI. Now at the beck and call of a monopolistic, monolithic megacorporation, only like an evil one, he's subjected to the worst torment Ernest Cline can think of. A full-time job in technical support. This is chapter 30 of 39, and the end is in sight. So let's log in and see what Wade has to deal with this time. It's now 8 days later, and Wade's telling us about his typical workday. IOI's tech support department takes up 3 floors on the eastern eye-shaped tower. Wade has a cubicle in a remote corner, and it's completely bare apart from the chair, which contains the computer in it and activates when he sits down. There's a gamer mod con for you, computer chairs. Aside from that, his cubicle's completely blank and empty, owing to the fact that he doesn't have the privileges yet to decorate it. If I obtained a sufficient number of perk points by getting high productivity and customer approval ratings, I could spend some of them to purchase the privilege of decorating my cube, perhaps with a potted plant or an inspirational poster of a kitten hanging from a clothesline. We get it, Ernie, you worked in an office. His work computer in the chair only allows his visor access to IOI's intranet. He's got no access to the Oasis proper, and everything he does on the intranet is logged and monitored. He begins his 12-hour shift, and his first caller in the queue is quite a turn-up for the books. The first caller's avatar appeared in front of me in my support chat room. He had the astoundingly clever name of Hotcock007. Remember the tech support slam poem that came out with episode 20? That was about 10 weeks ago now? I literally just re-listened to that this morning. One of the stupid names that Ernie comes up with for that is Hotcock007.
You want to use the pseudonym Hotcock007 to pick up Chinese schoolgirls on AOL.
Ernest is just as good as recycling his own ideas as he is other people's. Hotcock007 was a hulking bald barbarian with studded black leather armor and lots of demon tattoos covering his arms and face.
Sexy.
His problem is that he's bought a bastard sword in an online auction, but he's finding that he's unable to use it. Wade drones out his standard tech support spiel. The customer courtesy software filtered my voice, altering its tone and inflection to ensure that I always sounded cheerful and upbeat. I could do with something like that at work, actually. Hotcock007 asks if his sword is broken since it doesn't work. Sir, the only problem is that you're a complete fucking moron, I said. I heard a familiar warning buzzer and a message flashed on my display. Courtesy violation. Flags. Fucking moron. As part of this glimpse into the IOI tech support system, we're told that this response is muted to the customer but sent off to Wade's supervisor Trevor for a performance review. Examining the sword, Wade notes that in the first line of the description, it says it can only be wielded by a 10th level avatar, whereas Hotcock007 is only 7th level. The leather daddy known as Hotcock doesn't take the news well. Well, what am I supposed to do with it now? You could shove it up your ass and pretend you're a corn dog. Courtesy violation. Response muted. Violation logged. Wade's suggestion is that he either keeps it until he's 10th level or sells it on to buy a different sword. And it is a lengthy explanation, but it's not a particularly difficult to comprehend one. But Hotcock007 doesn't get it until it's put in the most simplest terms possible. You know, just to hammer home how stupid you are if you need to call tech support. Thanks, Ernie. Now that he's helped him all he can, Wade disconnects the call. 2 things happen next. I'm going to say the second one first, and it's that Hotcock007 gives him a 6 out of 10 rating for his customer service. Apparently that's below average on his target. The first thing that happened, which I'm saying second, is that the next customer's avatar appeared. A red-skinned, large-breasted alien female named Vartax. That's 3 X's. Is this in any way relevant? Is Vartax coming back? Flipping through... No, I don't think she is. In a total of 9 words, we know 3 things about this character, and one of them is that she's got huge breasts. Just like any time Ernest mentioned a real-life actress, it's presumably because he had a wandering erection while he was typing out this chapter. The next few paragraphs are a summary of Wade's typical day in tech support. Unlike his previous tech support job, he can't watch movies or have something else on in the background. His only distraction is to watch the clock or the IOI stock ticker, which is in the corner of his display. We get it, Ernie. You hate corporations, but only faceless ones. He gets 3 5-minute restroom breaks and half an hour for lunch. I usually ate in my cubicle instead of the cafeteria, so I wouldn't have to listen to the other tech reps bitch about their calls or boast about how many perk points they'd earned. I'd grown to despise the other indents almost as much as the customers. Wade's the kind of guy who'd put misanthropic in his Twitter bio and then act surprised when people treat that like a red flag. He tells us that he has trouble staying awake during his shift. He's been provided with 2 little red pills each day to help me stay awake. I took them too, but not until after I got off work. The real reason Wade's having trouble staying awake is because he's spending all his off time working on a secret project. He spends all his free time in his hab unit, but he's sabotaged both the unit's security cameras and his own ear gear, so he can no longer be monitored once he switches off all the lights. As far as his supervisors know, he's been marathoning every episode of Tommy Q until he falls asleep. In truth, he's jailbroken? In truth, he's jailbroken his hab unit's entertainment console, and he's only getting about 2 hours of sleep per night. And this is the part where we're finally getting some explanations. About 7 months earlier, I'd obtained a set of IOI intranet passwords from the Leet Hacksaw's warehouse. Remember them? I wasn't expecting that to come back. Wade says he's always monitoring the black market sites, because you never knew what might be up for sale on them. Oasis server exploits, ATM hacks, celebrity sex tapes. Firstly, that's a gross violation of privacy for our hero to be engaging in. Second, we still don't know what a celebrity is in this world. A listing caught his eye for IOI intranet access passwords, backdoors, and system exploits. Supposedly they were being sold by a former IOI contractor, someone who'd coded their intranet systems to have all these exploits in, so that he could then sell the exploits to the highest bidder, making him get paid twice for the same job, and to salve any guilt he felt about working for a demonic multinational corporation like IOI. Wade was one of the few people to have bid on this listing, because it couldn't be verified as being legit. But like Mr. Hotcock 007, he also found something in the fine print of the auction, that the codes were useless unless you already had access to IOI's intranet, either as an employee or an indent. Like much of Wade's knowledge and skill set, the codes were stashed away for a rainy day until the narrative decided they were important. About 6 months later, when I saw the Sixer barricade around Castle Anorak, the first thing I thought of was the IOI access codes. Then the wheels in my head began to turn and my ridiculous plan began to take shape. I don't know how I should feel about the main character who is narrating the book keeping details like this secret from the audience. If that was your first thought at the time, you certainly didn't elucidate it then. But then if you had, the story structure would have fell down. We also find out here that he altered his own financial records on the Bryce Lynch identity. He didn't really run up a massive credit card bill. He just made it look like he did so that they could come and capture him. His secret plan then is to infiltrate IOI, hack into the Sixers database, and find a way to take down the force field around Castle Anorak on Cthonia. I didn't think anyone would anticipate this move, because it was so clearly insane. Page break! Between this and the following page break, we've got an explanation of how clever Wade's being. He'd first hacked the entertainment centre by having his head in front of the security camera to block their view of the console, and by keeping the console in his peripheral vision and operating it by touch so that the camera in his ear gear didn't see it either. Fiddling with the volume and brightness settings on the console pops up a login window, so he uses the maintenance man's ID and password. Hacker voice, I'm in. Gaining access to the indent monitoring system, he finds his own profile, or Bryce Lynch's profile. There are 2 vidfeed windows embedded in it, and using the exploits he configures both of them to display footage of him sleeping when he gives the voice command for the lights to go off. You know, that old looping camera trick from heist films. The split-second jump cut in the feed would be masked by the momentary video distortion that occurred when the camera switched into night vision mode. From there, he'd spent a week trying to hack into the Oology Division's database, and he finally succeeded on the 7th night. The Motherlode, the Sixers' private file pile. I don't like the phrase file pile. And it's now on the 8th night that he's finally got time to explore within. If you think that's caught us up to the present day, he also tells us that earlier in the week, he submitted a fake hardware request for a flash drive. With a 10 zettabyte capacity, he plans to steal all the Sixers' data before he escapes. Look, he's got a plan to escape as well. He'd had the flash drive delivered to a fake employee in an empty cubicle a few rows away from his own. The fake name's Sam Lowry, who I've looked up, and he's from Brazil? It doesn't really sound like a Brazilian name, but what do I know? He'd grabbed the flash drive by not looking directly into the cubicle, since his ear gear would reveal what he was doing. So I'm just picturing him moving around like a Quantic Dreams character. Sidebar, Sam Lowry is a character from the movie Brazil. I mean, you're dealing with a corporation full of oologists who know all the same things that you do because they're doing just as well in the hunt as you are. Do you really think nobody's going to notice Sam Lowry or Bryce Lynch as obvious pseudonyms? We've got another page break here, and I've briefly cast my eyes over it, and I don't like the sound of what's coming next. Tying into the idea that the Sixers know more than Wade does, this next part is about him exploring their database. It's represented on his visor as a 3-dimensional view that he can manipulate with his hands. Isn't hacking so much easier with an interface like that? The largest section of the database appeared to be devoted to information on Halliday. The amount of data they had on him was staggering. It made my Grail diary look like a set of Cliff's notes. They've got access to school reports going back to his childhood and private emails that he sent to his fans. Wade copies it all onto his flash drive to peruse later. He also copies all the intel on the Sixers' positions in and around Castle Anorak, including where they're keeping the force field generating orb of Osuvox and the employee number of the Sixer wizard who's operating it. Do wizards operate things? I'm drifting. He's also located footage of the Sixers discovering the third gate in the castle. To my disgust, I learned that Sorrento had been the first avatar to set foot inside Castle Anorak since Halliday's death. In this ornate golden castle hall, there's a large crystal door set into the wall. You might think that's a big clue in the hunt, but it turns out you can only enter the castle if you've got the crystal key in the first place. But the keyhole in the crystal door doesn't seem to respond to the key. This is where the Sixers have been stuck for the past several days. Now this is the part where it starts to drift into uncomfortable territory. Wade uncovers a restricted area of the database called the Star Chamber. Using his maintenance account, he has to create a new admin ID with the highest privileges in order to be able to access it. There's 2 folders inside, Mission Status and Threat Assessments. I opened the Threat Assessments folder first, and when I saw what was inside, I felt the blood drain from my face. There were 5 file folders, labelled Parzival, Artemis, H, Shoto, and Daito. Daito's folder had a large red X over it. Curiously, he checks the Parzival folder, just to see what information they've got on him. They've got all sorts of official and unofficial documentation, ranging in time from his birth certificate right up until the part where they thought they killed him by detonating his aunt's trailer. After that point, they have no data on his current whereabouts in the real world, though they've got plenty of sightings of his avatar, and loads of data on my stronghold on Falco. Falco! He's back! Now, if you have friends and they're purposefully holding personal information from you, A, they have a damn good reason for it, and B, it's none of your business to go prying into. Just a general life lesson for you. With that in mind, I closed the window, took a deep breath, and opened the file on Artemis. No! The first thing he sees is an old school photo of a young girl with a distinctly sad smile. Wade learns that she looks just like her avatar. The same dark hair, the same hazel eyes, and the same beautiful face I knew so well. With one small difference. Most of the left half of her face was covered with a reddish-purple birthmark. I would later learn that these types of birthmark were sometimes referred to as port wine stains. In the photo, she wore a sweep of her dark hair down over her left eye to try to conceal the mark as much as possible. Artemis had led me to believe that in reality she was somehow hideous, but now I saw that nothing could have been further from the truth. To my eyes, the birthmark did absolutely nothing to diminish her beauty. If anything, the face I saw in the photo seemed even more beautiful to me than that of her avatar, because I knew this one was real. This is a gross violation of Artemis's privacy. You have now accessed photos of her that she very deliberately did not allow you to access. You are now, without her consent, aware of a facet of her appearance that she is clearly self-conscious about. And it gets worse. Thanks to this stolen, hacked data, Wade now knows her real name of Samantha Evelyn Cook, as well as her age, her height, her weight, and her home address in Vancouver, British Columbia. He's got her blood type, her school transcripts, a live vid feed of her house. There's hundreds of hours of audio of her and text transcripts. Corporations shouldn't withhold this type of information under various data protection acts. IOI is the corporation that has been designated as evil. We know, as an audience, that they are in the wrong for doing this. But not once here is it said that Wade is also in the wrong for doing this. This is completely disgusting behaviour. He spends a little less time checking out the files of his other fellow Gunters. He tells us that Shoto's file has his real name, Akihide Karatsu, his home address and a school photo, and then we move on to H. H seemed to be the one they knew the least about. His file contained very little information and no photo, just a screenshot of his avatar. His name's listed as Henry Swanson, which is an alias from Big Trouble in Little China, and his address is listed as mobile. So maybe he's in a camper van or something? They have managed to narrow down H's recent access points. This turned out to be a list of the wireless node locations H had recently used to access his Oasis account. They were all over the place. Boston, Washington DC, New York City, Philadelphia, and most recently, Pittsburgh. It finally tumbles to Wade that IOI is the largest internet provider in the world. It's difficult to even access the internet without going through them. From the looks of it, IOI had been illegally eavesdropping on most of the world's internet traffic in an attempt to locate and identify the handful of Gunters they considered to be a threat. Yes, access to this kind of non-consensual information is illegal, Wade, and you're copying it all onto a flash drive. The only reason they hadn't been able to locate me was because I'd taken the paranoia-induced precaution of leasing a direct fibre optic connection to the Oasis from my apartment complex. Well, bully for you. He has a look in Daito's folder as well, because why stop there? And they've got a full dossier, including his real name and home address as well. At the bottom is a video clip timestamped to the day he died. The video shows 3 of IOI's operatives in black ski masks breaking into Daito's apartment and throwing him from the balcony. The bastards even filmed him plummeting to his death, probably at Sorrento's request. Wave's nauseous for all of 1 sentence. And then he copies all this illegally gained information onto his own flash drive. He has a look in the mission status section as well. It archives all of the Oology Division's status reports. The most recent one is from Sorrento, sent to the IOI Board of Executives. In it, Sorrento proposed sending agents to abduct Artemis and Shoto from their homes to force them to help IOI open the 3rd gate. Once the Sixers had obtained the egg and won the contest, Artemis and Shoto would be disposed of. Wade's stunned, then he's angry, then he's panicked. Wade tries to figure out how much time he's got to warn Artemis and Shoto. Sorrento had sent this memo at 8 PM outside of office hours, so the executives probably hadn't even seen it yet. And once they did, there would probably still be discussions. He works out he's got until tomorrow afternoon to warn them. But to do that, I would have to drastically alter my escape plan. Now, this unflappable hero, who has everything done in advance for him by virtue of skills he gained off screen, had set up a timed money transfer into his account before he'd been taken into indenturement. The idea was that it would transfer into his account after 2 weeks as an indent, paying off all his debt and making him a free man again. And in that time, he would have stolen all his data. But that transfer wouldn't happen for another 5 days. By then, the Sixers would probably have Artemis and Shoto locked in a windowless room somewhere. So now, working off 2 hours of sleep per night, he now has until dawn to figure out an escape plan to enact the next day. End chapter 30. So, what can you say about this chapter? There's the broken record of Wade's over-preparedness mixed in with confusing non-linear storytelling. There's the satire of an office worker lifestyle, but told from the perspective of a misanthropic outsider, thus confusing the anti-corporo-speak message. There's Wade's reprehensible doxing of a girl he likes, which he must understand on some level is wrong, because he wouldn't know to call it illegal when IOI does it. And there's the subpar heist movie shenanigans as well. Wade's plan has been kept a secret from us, the reader, even though we have a direct line into his personal monologue. This is the part at the end of the heist movie where the plan goes awry, and the heroes have to compensate for that. We are, just now, in chapter 30, learning that the plan formulated since chapter 27 is going wrong, but we didn't know the plan back then, so the impact of it going wrong now just falls flat. I've mentioned before that the game and movie references don't resonate as much with somebody who wasn't brought up in the exact specific circumstances that Ernest Cline was, and now that's extending to his experiences in an office workplace. This book is aimed at a very specific demographic of people who are Ernest Cline. Like one of those t-shirts that's like, don't mess with a former tech support engineer who loves 80s movies and was born in March. I feel like the Artemis Sixer spy theory is going out the window now. That kind of detail would probably be in the Sixer database. Ah well, there goes my hopes for a more interesting story. If you want to steal my personal details, you can follow me on Twitter at TheLastGherkin, or follow the show on Twitter at RPN_pod. Watch along with subtitles on YouTube, The Last Gherkin, and there's probably no point checking thelastgherkin.podbean.com for MP3 downloads by now. We have less than 10 chapters to go. Our long international nightmare is nearly over. Join us next time as Wade turns up at Artemis's house in real life. Oh, that's a joke. Please don't actually do that. New track. Can you hear me now? Just how close do I need to sit to the microphone? Welcome back to Ready Player None, the only podcast that says, I forgot what the thing was going to be now. 2 little red pills each day to help me stay awake. Who's ringing me on the phone while I'm recording a podcast? Sorrento had sent this meme